Good evening and welcome back to my channel where today we're going to continue the examination of possible audio system configurations. Let's say it is to some degree the reel-to-reel heaven. But what exactly you use to play those reel-to-reels? It's a different question. So today we're going to examine this alternate system, if you will. What you've seen on the screen today is a very, very simple configuration. Just two components working together. In the previous segment, the system featured there was very, very complicated. It was a large system with very big, powerful, and expensive components. And certainly if you look at the cost of two Rex power amps plus Rex 3 preamp and some associated components, you're talking about very sizable expense. So the question is, can you obtain very, very good result by using much less expensive approach? And today we'll try to answer this question. Like I said, what you've seen on the screen is one such possible configuration. The Revox B77 tape deck on the left is definitely not one of the most expensive decks you can buy today. In fact, it is one of the more affordable high-end decks. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in detail a little bit later. So once you have this tape deck issue under control and the cost is reasonable, you look at the electronics. And here I'm offering you another possibility. And in this case, it is a vacuum tube integrated amplifier. So you don't have to invest in a separate preamplifier and power amp. You just buy one unit of this type or similar type. It could be solid state or vacuum tube as you see in here, whatever your heart desires. But generally speaking, integrated amps command much lower prices, especially when you consider the cost of two components or three components, as the case might be, versus just one, as you can see right now on your screen. So here we have a closer look at those components. And on the left you see very, very familiar, very common in the marketplace Revox B77 model. Like I said, it's definitely not the most expensive machine there, because today such models can be had for well under $2,000. I've seen some offerings in the hundreds of dollars. Yes, it might require some cleaning, maybe some repair. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But basically it's a sound, pun intended of course, solution to our problem. And on the right, we are seeing BET, naturally, VK80i all-tube integrated amp. The new price tag for this model, I believe, is about $10,000, but you can find them on the used market for much less. They've been in production for a number of years already, so there are some used units to be found for a reasonable price. And the reason I like this unit, not simply because I designed it, but because it puts together a very nice combination of features. And again, we'll talk about it a little bit later. The Revox B77 has been in production for a number of years, and today it is readily available on the used market. And what can one say about this very well-known machine? Number one, it's very, very elegant. It's undeniably elegant. Its design stands out very quickly from the field of other good quality or not so good quality tape decks. And with a name like Revox, you expect some very high quality, and you get most of it. No, it's not a machine without any blemishes or problems, and we'll talk about them in a second, but it is a very, very good package. And let's go through its features and talk about its attractiveness. Why so many collections today include this particular very high caliber machine? Besides just being beautiful and pleasure to look at, this machine exhibits very, very soft touch. And you can see here its operation is effortless. It's very soft, very quiet. I'm using my remote control, of course. Its tape handling is nice. It's not greatest tape handling in the realm of professional machines, but it is very good at the level of, I would say, consumer machines. I know some people put this tape recorder into semi-professional category. I don't agree with that. I think it lacks several very important characteristics that a semi-professional machine should exhibit. But still, it's a very high-end consumer model. I think that's a very good overall description of this particular piece. This model comes in a variety of formats. That's the beauty of it. And the machine you see in here, it is a somewhat special model. It's definitely not as common and as some other models because it is 2-track, 15 inches per second high speed IEC machine. The great majority of the machines you find on the market will be 4-track low speed models. And if you shop in the US, you will probably mostly find NAB machines, which are fine for playing pre-recorded commercial tapes of the 60s and 70s and even 80s. But if you have your sights on higher quality sound reproduction, you should consider 2-track 15-inch machine. And in this case, the majority of pre-recorded tapes will come with IEC equalization. This particular piece came from Europe, therefore it came equipped with all the right features for me. Like I said, high speed, 2-track IEC configuration, which is stated on the back of the machine right next to the power cord. It lists all those features. And like I said, if you are after high quality sound reproduction, that's a format you would like to have. Some people will argue that NAB offers some advantages, and yes, in some people's minds, that's true. But most people will still tell you that IEC is the most common and probably or arguably is the best format. I already mentioned the relative affordability of this particular model. Yes, the prices of quote-unquote under $2,000 today should be considered fairly affordable for high caliber, and this is a high caliber machine. This model is quite universal in what it can do. For example, it will accept this wireless remote control. You've seen me use it before. I love this control. And this is my transmitter, and you can see the red light on top of the machine. That's a remote control receiver. And you see it's working without any problems. It's actually a pleasure to use this particular remote. The machine is generally considered very reliable. The maintenance is very easy for this machine because it's modular. You can replace most of the circuit boards in a matter of a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And the parts are plentiful. You go on eBay and you see all kind of parts for that particular machine. Because again, it's been in production for a number of years. There are huge volume of those machines that have been produced. And the parts and parts machines, if that's your inclination, are plentiful and just about everywhere. And that includes upgrades. You know, some of you might say, okay, the standard machine, the way it comes from production, from the factory, is okay, but I would like to make it better. And there is absolutely no problem with that. There are quite a few upgrades available on the market. Price ranges typically are reasonable. So for example, you can buy an upgraded reproduce amplifier for just about anywhere from $100 to $200. I have not tried those, but there is a potential that they might sound better than the stock boards, because stock boards would have older components that would probably have to be replaced anyway. So in many cases it makes sense just to buy for $100 such an upgraded board and hopefully get sonic improvement. Now, one question you will be facing will be whether you should consider Mark I versus Mark II machine. And I would say if you find nice clean Mark I, don't worry about it, because the only difference between Mark I and Mark II is that Mark II has variable speed. Do you need it? I don't know. I never used it myself, so to me that's not a significant difference. Another nice feature of this machine is that it readily takes AEG DIN platters. I don't think every sample of this machine has it, but most of them have 2 holes in the real table that allows you to mount those platters. And I love that feature. I use it all the time. And I already mentioned the modularity. If you open the case, you will see very nice, easy access card cage. And you can change and swap and replace boards to your delight. No product is without negatives. So here are some that I associate with this particular model. Number 1 on my list is bad tape path. It's not the easiest machine to feed the tape. And as you can see, the heads are hidden, they're hard to see, hard to get access to. It's just not ideal. The company changed this later in the PR99 model, but this particular one still has it. There is also no tension control, which is okay for this level of machine. But what is not okay in my mind is it doesn't have playback equalization adjustment. I really would like to see that. And I believe you can buy some upgraded boards that have that. No balanced connectors. Well, it may or may not be such a big deal, so let's just move on. One minor issue, the material used for the case on that model can ooze some substance with time, and it can lose its appearance and become sticky and ugly. Different people have different remedy for that issue. I found that simply scrubbing the case with a scrubbing pad using some dishwasher solution took care of my two decks. They look almost brand new right now. They look very, very clean, and it didn't take much. So anyway, that's not such a big problem. The very primitive tape counter on this machine, it's not digital, it's not real time, it's just a relative counter. And on my machine, you see in here, the tape counter belt broke right in the middle of my preparation for this video. Fortunately, it is a very inexpensive part. The machine can be excused after so many years, rubber becomes brittle, and this belt is about the first part to go. Easy to replace, easy to buy, no big deal. And I would mention that this machine has no search routine of any kind. Even quote-unquote lesser machines, such as TIAC, will have at least one point search option using mechanical counters. But yes, you can set it to 0 and it will search back to 0 very reliably. Revox doesn't have it. I find it a fairly sizable inconvenience. So that's pretty much it about this particular machine. It's a very, very good machine to have, and if you find one for good price, definitely get it. It's a classic. It will keep working for you with some minor maintenance, and it's very hard to do better in terms of sound quality for that reasonable price range. And now we're going to be talking about the second contributor to this video, and that of course is BAT VK80i vacuum tube integrated amp. I already mentioned the convenience of the integrated amp, but the question is how good it is actually. Well, when I just started designing this amp, we had very large amps in production. They were full-size, large machines with a bunch of tubes and up to 14 power supplies inside. They were complex. They were very good machines, but very complex and large and expensive. So to design this one, I had to use very different architecture. The one used in the older large top-end machines was simply not suitable for this type of price range and dimensions. So be it as it may, it turned out to be quite nice, I think. And it borrowed some very nice convenient features from the big brothers. For example, automatic biasing circuits. They've been very robust. We've used them since we introduced our first models in 1995 with some modifications, but they've been absolutely robust, reliable, and keep tubes in proper bias at all times. The second important characteristic which you find very, very valuable is electronic protection for the output tubes. In any systems, things happen. You can have transient caused by many, many different sources. You can have just interconnects partially unplug and send horrible sounds to the system. And in many cases, what will happen, you will blow the fuse in your power amp. Yes, it's fairly minor, but it's an inconvenience because you have to take machine apart, you have to replace the fuse. If you have replacement or you have to buy it, it's a problem. With this particular model, all you have to do is flip power switch off and then back on. And the electronic protection circuitry will reset. It's very, very convenient. I used to work with our older models, and sometimes you would have to change fuses, and that was something I would rather avoid. With this model, it's fantastic, I would say. And of course, this model borrows the same 6C33 output tubes. That's a tube that in my mind is the best, simply the best tube for audio output. Just one pair of those tubes is good to produce about 85 watts. That's what you get in this fairly small chassis. And that's enough to rock almost any speaker in a reasonable size room. Not the heaviest speaker, mind you, but the most reasonable speakers will work very, very well. Today we're driving my avant-garde horns, which do not require that power. But what's interesting, you don't hear any noise here. When you connect this amplifier to the speakers, there is absolutely no noise that you can hear. And that doesn't happen with every piece of electronics. Now, a couple of words on one very important aspect of using vacuum tube amplifiers. You probably have seen notations like this is 8 ohm tap, this is 4 ohm tap, and so on. So the question is, how do you connect your speakers to the amplifier? On the back of VK80i, you will also see multiple taps, but they're not marked 8 for whatever ohms, they're marked low, medium, and high. And the reason is very simple, because those numbers don't mean anything. There is no simple rule to connecting speakers to your tube amplifiers. Some might think that connecting an 8 ohm speaker to the 8 ohm tap is a proper procedure. It is not. It is simply the connection that will provide the maximum power transfer. But maximum power is not always your main objective. You're looking for sound quality. And for this reason, I always advise people, whatever your speaker's impedance, try all three possibilities. Low, medium, and high on this amp and all other bad tube power amps. There is general trend that you will discover. For example, connecting speaker to the high tap will generally produce the most open sound. It will be like a butterfly fluttering around your room, and it's very, very pleasing. But your bass control may leave a little bit to be desired. So that's why you try medium taps, and then maybe even low taps. The low taps provide the best control, but they make the sound a little bit more constrained. So that's your trade-off. And like I said, my advice is always try all of them and find out which one works best for you. As I mentioned, this model comes with a remote control that allows you to switch its inputs and control the volume. As it keeps going through its power on sequence, you will see it blinking, but it will turn to steady state at some point. This amplifier has 4 inputs, one of them is XLR, and 3 inputs are RCAs. You see now it completed its turn on sequence and it's ready to use. Input 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You can use volume knob on the front or remote control. As you probably noticed, this model has toroidal output transformers, which has been our trademark, and they work very, very well in our case. And like I said, this unit is good to produce about 85 watts per channel. So that's pretty much description of today's system. We'll play a little bit more music after this, but in the meantime, if you have any questions, please let me know. So yes, you can build a less expensive, very nicely sounding, very well sounding system if you know exactly what you're doing. And by all means, there may be other components for such a system. You can use different tape deck and you can use totally different amplifier, but that's a basic idea, basic approach. So I wish you all the luck in that regard. So once again, thank you very much for coming. Let me know if you have any further questions. And in the meantime, let's listen to this beautiful recording. So once again, thank you for coming back, and please stay well.